Alright everyone, welcome back to our Return to Borderlands 3 playthrough. We're here again in the Handsome Jackpot, and this time we're going to the Market District to go to Trashlantis, which is going to be our next big area, but we have to obviously get there and do some stuff along the way. Like I said, we don't have anything too crazy. Our skill tree is pretty much the same. We haven't unlocked anything else, so I think maybe we'll throw back our Boomer instead of our Companion, because the Boomer is actually pretty good. But we also have this Barricade, but we might not really use it. Still have our Lob, and everything else is kind of nothing too crazy that we have unlocked. And we still have this, what's it, Embers Blaze, this shield that we got from her doing that mission for her. But we don't have anything else that we can really get from, so we're kind of just going to progress through the story, going into the marketplace. But as of recording this, Christmas has, I guess, passed. So, I mean, Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrated it, or do or don't celebrate it, I guess. Or you do celebrate it. I did, obviously, do celebrate Christmas. So I got to go see some of my family members. Or I guess some of, not all of my family members, but, you know, the kind of small selection. Because, you know, I guess if you're someone who comes from, like, a relatively big family, but not, like, big compared to some people. Because I know there are people who have, like, well over dozens of, like, I guess a handful of aunts and uncles, and maybe some older grandparents or great aunts or great uncles. Then you have obviously like all the cousins and the extended family of who joins in. So if any of your family members are married, or like if their family maybe comes along, or maybe you have, you know, your friends Christmas from friends, or maybe you live somewhere where that's pretty much your main group is your friends, or maybe like your co-workers or your, I don't know, I guess co-workers kind of, I guess, yeah, co-workers, especially if you're in a place where, you know, you don't get to see your family, or maybe you work, or like you're in out of overseas, or out of the country, or out of the state, I guess is the best way to put it. Because for me, it's like, I do have like a big family, but, you know, we don't get to see as many of all the family members as much, only a select few. Even then, it's still a lot of people compared to like what it used to be, I guess, when I was really young. Even then, you still have like the other side of the family too. You know, like if you're going to like the mom's side of the family or dad's side of the family, you know, you kind of maybe only see some of them or don't see any of them. Because, you know, I was always more close with my mom's side of the family than my dad's side of the family. But I still see both every once in a while, but only certain ones. You know, because they have their lives, and some of them are a little bit older and already kind of, you know, they were never really like, we never really saw them as much, even as like younger people, as like kids, you know, because, you know, there's those times where like, you see them a lot when you're maybe a little bit younger, because, you know, you're all kind of like the same age range, I guess the cousins, I mean. But then you have like eventually once everyone gets older, or the ones that were kind of already a bit older, like the teenagers or the kind of young adults, because, you know, you have some of those cousins who are already like, when you're like a little kid, like, you know, they're like a teenager, or they're already, by the time you really get to understand them and talk to them, they're already like married with kids. And that's kind of how it is with some of my family members. But, you know, I'm kind of like in that like weird middle area, being like the middle kid or the middle cousin. I still have some cousins who are a little bit older than me, and then I have a couple who are like a lot older than me, and then I have cousins who are just becoming adults, and some of them are still like in their like teenage years or barely entering the teen years. So, you know, it's kind of a weird thing to think about. You know, because I guess you never realize how big your family is until you really like look at it. You know, how many aunts and uncles and cousins there are. You know, it kind of gives you like a weird perspective, because you think like, oh, it's just like you and maybe your siblings and your parents, and maybe you only have a couple siblings. But then you realize, like, wait a minute, you know, like, especially from like your grandparents, you know, like if your grandpa and grandma had like, I don't know, like 6 kids, and each of those kids, you know, gets married and has 3 kids, and then, or 3 or 6 kids, you know, it's like, dang, that's a lot of people. And then eventually, once everyone gets really old, they start having kids, and then they get married, and then they kind of add to a new family, and like a new kind of like chain is basically created. And you have like your, I guess, extended family, you know, like your grandparents' family members, you know, like being and having a relationship with like your, I don't know, your grandma's brother who you maybe never really met, or your grandpa's sister who's like part of your life, and then you see like their family, and then they have a whole extended family. And I guess it's kind of like how you connect each other, like, you know, like being like first cousins, second cousins, third cousins, you know, like it's kind of like, it's very complex. Oh, the needle gun. Actually, the needle guns are actually really good. I don't even know what I was really kind of saying. This kind of going on a rant, but, you know, I guess, you know, it was good to see people, your family members, because you don't really see them as much, even though they actually are like in close proximity. And, you know, sometimes you think you could just go visit them, but there's kind of that weird feeling where of visiting family members, even though they're like close to you, maybe they live in the same city or town, or they live not far from you. So you just go. It's like weird to go and visit them and see them, other than other like specific holidays like Christmas or like Thanksgiving or I guess the next one would be like Easter or maybe for like a birthday or some type of like summer barbecue or other like holiday event that you maybe celebrate. It's like where you would see your extended family member, especially those that like I guess live in the city or town that you are or state. Ooh, we got a Echo 2, but that's not really useful. I didn't really. I guess for Christmas I kind of got the typical like middle, I guess young adult man gifts, which is like I don't know clothes, and like underwear, socks, and like some other like hygiene products. I guess the best way to put it, like deodorant, soap, that kind of stuff. I did get like a. I actually did get like a controller for the Xbox controller, which is actually something I was kind of surprised because usually the person who would buy it for me isn't someone who really is like familiar with that kind of stuff or would maybe want to spend that much money because it is expensive. They would rather buy like more useful utility stuff like that or stuff that they're maybe more familiar with. So it was kind of cool to see. But it was also kind of cool to give like gifts to like the younger cousins, I guess. Like I said before, that's kind of like always a feeling I've had of like being, especially when I was maybe a little younger, to go and be like, oh, let's go into a store and be able to pick out a bunch of like gifts or toys or funny things and give them to your family members, because that was always like a feeling to have. And I guess I kind of am doing that, but it's still kind of expensive, I guess. But I guess maybe to me, I'm not someone who really worries about money that way. I'm not like struggling financially, but I'm someone who's like not really trying to like. Who always tries to stress out about money or tries to be like, uh-oh, I can't afford to pay this, Because I know there are people like that who are very, like, frugal or very, like, I guess not cheap, but I mean, very cautious about what they buy and what you don't buy, spending money, trying to save money. And I guess if you're someone who maybe has a job that isn't, like, the most, like, financially, like, stable job, I guess, if you work at, like, McDonald's, and you make like what $15 an hour or something like that, or maybe you make a little bit more because maybe you've been there for so long. Even that is still like a lot, especially if you're living on your own. But I'm lucky to have another like my I guess dad to help support me, and I guess my mom to still support me in a way, even though I'm kind of on my own. I guess. Oh, I guess I'm not on my own, but you get what I mean. Like you're an adult. I still like have to pay all my other stuff, but I have like my mom and dad to help me in my own way. Which is, I guess, some people don't have that. Some people do. You kind of get to that point where your parents kind of kick you out and say, "Get out of here. You're an adult now. Go live on your own." But sometimes you kind of get to that point where you kind of once you leave your parents, you probably aren't going to see them because unless you want to go out of your way to see them. But I guess you don't really hate them. You kind of like, yeah, this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen. But especially if your parents kind of, I guess, taught you this, or like said like, hey, before you even become 18 or when you're younger, you're going to have to do this. Because some people are like, they grow up thinking their parents are going to support them, and then once they hit 18, they're like, wait a minute, now I have to get out and leave. Like, well, but I don't want to deal with you guys if you guys aren't going to like take care of me or help me out. I don't know, but I guess you also like help out your own parents too, because I guess my parents aren't that old to where they need a lot of help financially or help like with like medical reasons or being just an old person. So maybe that's, but I guess it'll get to that point, and that's something I think I guess young people my age don't really, I guess, are starting to realize. Like realizing that your parents are going to get old, because it's someone you see like I guess if you still have your grandparents alive, seeing them. And some of them obviously get like really sick or they get really injured because you don't really think about that because my grandma got really sick and then but she passed away when I was really much younger and didn't really have the concept of understanding how like bad it was, and seeing my mom and all my other like aunts and uncles deal with that, it's something that as a kid you don't really think about. You see your grandma as just as someone who's like you never see them as sick, and then or maybe you're used to seeing them as like being like normal, I guess, or like getting up and like being like spoiling you and taking care of you, and they're like grandma way or grandpa way, and then you see them become sick or elderly or like suffer from like dementia or Alzheimer's, because stuff like that, heaven forbid anything happens to like your family members, but it does happen. And I don't know, it's just like a weird thing to think about, because I guess I never really thinking about like having that responsibility of taking care of your parents and having to deal with that because you're too busy thinking about yourself, and I guess some people are kind of like they don't even want to be with their parents, because like was it the no contact or the no relationship because their parents are, abusive or they're neglectful or they were too rough or stingy or they were mean or they kind of like said like you're an adult now, you're on your own, and like okay, well I guess I won't be seeing you anymore, or I'm not going to worry about you and your needs because once you get to that point of being too old, where you definitely need someone to kind of help you, or where maybe you're not working because you're retired, and maybe your like retirement plan isn't like the most financially stable thing. You're relying on like Social Security or Medicaid, or I think is it Medicaid or Medicare, the one for old people, or I guess seniors, I guess, and other things like that, or like your 401k or your pension, I guess. I don't know, stuff like that, because it does kind of suck that that's how it is for some people. Like not having a good relationship with your parents, or having a bad relationship with your parents. Because I don't know how I would feel if like pardon me for what's that, guys. Ooh, sorry about that, guys. I had a big sneeze and a big cough. Because it's so cold and it's the allergies just keep making it hard to talk and like to be here without like having to keep sniffs, like blowing my nose or like coughing. I don't know. Sorry about that. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a weird feeling to have, because especially if your parents maybe were really, I guess, your parents were really abusive or neglectful. I guess, you would really, I guess you kind of just would like be like, look, I don't want anything to do with you guys. I'm going to get out while I can. This is something I kind of talked about where you have like that love-hate relationship with your parents. You start to realize maybe your parents aren't like these perfect human beings. They make mistakes, or maybe you being in their life was maybe not necessarily an accident, but it made their life harder than maybe it would have been if they didn't have you. And then you kind of have that realization that maybe you become the burden, you become the problem. You feel like, oh well, my existence made your life worse, but I didn't choose to be born or choose to be alive. And then you get into that kind of like existential dilemma of like denying your own existence, for the convenience of your parents. But then you're like, wait a minute, do I want to live? I'm happy to have my life. But I guess if you're some millennial or older, maybe you kind of have that feeling of like life sucks. Who cares? I'm depressed and suicidal, which I guess everyone is kind of in that position. Even I don't think I was ever like suicidal, but I was always like, I kind of had that feeling where maybe, like I was more of a burden on my parents than I kind of wanted to admit, or maybe my parents, kind of treated me like that, whether they realize it or not, because, that's kind of just how it is with a lot of people. You don't really understand your parents, and even as they get older, they kind of maybe don't tell you, especially if they come from like a part of the old way of thinking. If your parents are really old or not able to like articulate their feelings or like express themselves, and they're like, well, yeah, I expect you to like be one way, but then they treat you poorly. I don't know, I'm just rambling at this point, but yeah, I guess I'll kind of maybe tie up that like little like thought experiment or thought process I'm having. Because like I guess as I get older now, like I said before, everything is changing. The world is a different place. You kind of like look at those like nostalgia videos of like people like, oh, what it was like being a kid in like the early 2000s or in the 2010s even. How different things are. And you look at like the future, because like we think of like 2025 as like the turning point. Like 2030, we're closer to 2030 than we are to like 2020 or like the 2019. At this rate, and something that you don't really think about, because who knows what the future is. With AI and computers and technology. You kind of have this sense of mysticism and wonder. Like you watch like old movies about like the future. What it would look like. Remember when like was it Back to the Future took place in like I think it was like 2015 or 2016 or sometime in that period. And you're like realizing that the world that people imagine in like the early 80s or 90s wasn't really the world that we live in. Like the future, the flying car meme of like in the year we'll have flying cars, but we have we have AI videos of Donald Trump and Barack Obama and Joe Biden playing Call of Duty, or videos of was it that one of Will Smith eating a bowl of spaghetti, or like those weird like police videos of Adolf Hitler and like Rosa Parks and I don't know, like the Pope getting arrested and fighting the police, because that's always just that's what basically what technology has gotten to, where it's like that's the peak of it, is that I don't know. It's just a weird like feeling to think about what the future is, because you see like these sci-fi movies where everything is like hyper futuristic, and but you also look at like a lot of like what people, those like people who kind of predict the future, like in the past, talk about what the future is or like the struggles that people are going to deal with, and like we kind of see like, but then you look at other parts of the world where a lot of those parts of the world people don't even have cell phones, they don't even have running electricity or toilets, they're not really burdened by like the stuff that we are as Americans are, dealing with AI or algorithms or social media or like stuff like that, or technology taking our jobs, or I guess immigrants taking our jobs, when most of the people in other worlds live in like basic shanty towns or mud huts, and they're barely, most of them don't even have the concept of like the things that we do, or have to even deal with those things, and some of them may never even truly achieve that within our lifetime. Who knows? It's a weird thing to think about. Something that I kind of think about it once in a while, but because I think a lot of young people now kind of they get scared of getting older. They get scared of the future, because it is so scary. I can't have kids. I can't do this because we may be stuck in the past, or we may be stuck in the future.
What were you thinking? I know they tried to kill you and all, but it is what they were designed to do. Can't blame
I
them
don't
for
know.
trying.
Because I guess like you see people like realizing get as they get older, not wanting to get older, I guess, or like fearing that they're not like prepared for the future, because the world is so scary and bleak for some people. But then if you don't do it, then you kind of miss out. You lose out. It's like, well, if you don't do it, or you don't get married, you don't have kids, then the only person you're hurting is yourself, basically. The environment and society isn't gonna lose sleep over you not having kids, or you not getting married, or you not succeeding in this, or you doing that, or you wasting and not buying this or buying that. The world's gonna keep going. The Earth's gonna keep spinning. So you kind of have to like pick and choose what you want, but do you want to like take that risk or put yourself in that position? Because you never know. It's you could lose it all, as I kind of talked about. Every day you get up in the morning, you don't know what's going to happen to you, and you kind of have to take that risk, even though it is kind of scary. You have like people who can't even have a hard time going and asking the cashier, the teenager who, or the young millennial, or the young person who's barely wants to be there, to ask them for like extra ketchup, or they forgot to take the pickles off, or add the cheese, that kind of stuff. I see our gun is broken. I'm not sure what caused it. I think we had to go into fade away, and then we kind of stay in fade away, because when you throw your gun, it kind of like messes up with the skin. I am kind of curious to see what the future holds, because I guess for me, 2025 wasn't like that impactful. You think of like other years, there was kind of these other big moments, but you obviously have sadly tragedies and other bad things happen. And, I don't know if you've seen like a lot of like celebrities and even some YouTubers, sadly pass away within these last couple weeks, or within these months. It's kind of sad to see, but I guess that kind of just happens in general. I guess not like, I guess for older people, if there's someone who has a family member who's really old, they kind of just barely make it. From like, I would say November to like maybe March is kind of that like, I guess, death period, which is kind of a dark thing to say, where people die, or especially older people with like health conditions. But like obviously, things like suicide and like mental health is like obviously a big deal. Like I talked about, where December is simultaneously like the best time of year for family and getting together, but it's also like a time of like hardship and like being depressed, and like realizing that maybe you're not the best version of yourself, or having those like moments of maybe I'm not, like I said, I'm not the best. You're not the best version of you, or being depressed and seeing other people succeed, and maybe you're struggling, and you kind of don't feel like wanting to continue. You kind of, it's over, guys. I don't want to do it no more. And which is a sad thing to think about. But I guess there's sadly no real solution, because mental health is a very complex issue, and everyone is different. Some people can kind of get over it, or if they kind of with therapy or with like a support group. But other people, sadly, they can go so long, and then all it takes is one thing to kind of put them down that path, and and sadly they can't come back from it. Which is a very dark thing to think about. Because I guess everyone is kind of scared of death. Even I guess I am scared of death, but You know, you get those like random moments where you think about your own death, or you think of like dying or something. You know, when something you see like people die, and then you're like, whoa, that could be me. You think like, oh, how did I not do it? Especially if you live in a place where maybe bad things do happen to people every day, and you see see people get killed, down the street from you, and you're like, whoa, that could have been me. You know, it kind of makes you really like struggle with who you are, like your life expectancy or your mortality, I guess.
When did you eat that?
I don't know. Sorry, we're going on these dark like rabbit holes. It's just stuff I think about, because I don't know. Oh, yeah, I don't know those other like little pork things. I'm gonna jump here, and then we jump over here. I guess I always like this map. This map was because I guess it's very different. It kind of reminds me of actually Wall-E. The scene where they get on the trash compactor, or they get like flushed down basically, and like you see like those big giant robots that are like big Wall-Es, and Wall-E like Eve is like trying to like save them. I don't know. This is what that reminds me of. With the lighting and like the big chutes, because it is such a different like area. You wouldn't think about like this existing. I guess the idea of like, oh, we're gonna go into like the trash compactor, or into these like. There's going to be like a society of people who are like anti-capitalist, anti-materialists, who are like, oh, we're going to live in the trash because we've like achieved this level of like, I guess, thought and process. Because rather than being up there and I guess in the like main like hotel resort like main area where everyone is, fighting, being part of a gang, or being part of like a group trying to like fight for control or power or territory. It's better to be down here. But obviously the whole point of this is that people. Obviously the big beam that's keeping the big grinder or the machine from destroying everything is broken. Or we gotta repair it basically with the claptrap robot. Yeah, Mr. What's his face is blabbing. Our gun is still broken. I don't know how to fix it. I guess we gotta just because see now it's like, oh no, it's still broken. I figured you would just do it in I guess maybe if we leave fadeaway active, because when we throw it, it kind of glitches the gun, so maybe we leave it. Nope, our gun's still broken. You fix it if you swap away? Nope, it's still broken. Oh well. Now we meet the mayor of Trashlantis. I don't think he even has a name. He doesn't. I guess they don't give him much of a backstory other than he's Jax Taylor, and he's obviously like the main like mouthpiece, or the main like person spearheading the whole Trashlantis movement, or like collective group. Yeah, I know. You guys like your trash. I guess they don't like trash, but they like. I don't know.
Do you smell that? That's the smell of human camaraderie.
Yeah, he's blabbing.
What brings you to our little scrap of utopia?
Our task is the destruction of Pretty Boy, but we require your aid in this endeavor. We need a suit.
Ah, I see. I swore to never return to the wicked world above. But Trashlantis is in danger. Help me
So basically, he's telling us that he'll kind of help us, but we have to help him, obviously. Reinforce the beam, the steel beam that is like holding us all together, preventing all this from being destroyed or I guess incinerated. I guess it's supposed to be like a big giant grinder or like furnace basically that burns all this.
If you want your suit, help us to save Trashlantis.
Can we
This
talk
is
to
an
him?
admirable commune. I will do this for Trashlantis.
Welcome, comrade. Now, this constructor can reinforce the beam, but it requires some repairs. You must find a compatible AI chip and a new constructor eye.
Freddy's been listening in, and Freddy can help. If you're installing
Well, that
aftermarket
reminds me.
stuff
There's
on
also this one mission
you're
here.
gonna need
This
lots of
robot guy
power.
we can do.
Smash
This
the
what's his
loaders
name?
and grab their
This
power
Joy
cells.
robot.
You
But
need
maybe
a
we'll do it
bunch.
later. It's actually a pretty sad quest if you do it, but because it kind of takes you off surprise on what happens to it, what happens to the robot. But it's a pretty decent little fun mission to do. I don't think you get anything for it other than maybe a cosmetic or maybe just some like a generic gun. Because I know like some of these missions they give you like a lot of uniques. It gives you a unique. So we gotta get these power cells for basically the power up this constructor bot and get the AI chip. We're gonna get from a very special boss that we're gonna get rid of, the big main boss in this area. I guess because there's no main boss in the Vice Stitch, do you think maybe there would be? Because I guess this is the next big boss, is this And then after that, I think we fight Fabricator. Or I think there's Fabricator is the next big boss, I think. We have to obviously go through a lot just to get the Fabricator. And Fabricator is actually one of the more easier bosses to kill because he's basically just a big giant robot that kind of just stands there and spawns a bunch of loader bots. So I guess it's kind of the point of what it is. But we also get the, I think it's the ion cannon, that big, like the guaranteed, one of you, like the few guaranteed legendaries you can technically get. I mean, like, you just have to kill him once and you get it. I remember the ion laser was like, or not the, is it the ion cannon, I think, or was it the ion laser? I know there's like 2 or 3 like ion guns with ion in their like name. Basically that big powerful Vladoff launcher that was like used to be like really meta, kind of like the yellow cake, but then they kind of nerfed it to make it consume a lot more ammo, and then they kind of lowered its damage, and then they kind of changed it again because it was struggling in like Mayhem mode because of the weird scaling of Mayhem 2, when they kind of introduced it, which is the current version of Mayhem that we have. I don't know, it's like, because it was actually a really cool gun, to think about. Oh yeah, there's also this food here, but that's for the side quest. I think there's nothing else we need to get. We gotta obviously go fight the main boss of this area. I wonder who it's gonna be. I won't spoil it if you guys know who it is. Because I think after that, next is obviously like once you beat that, you destroy the thing, and you obviously head into fight one of another big boss. I guess that's the twist boss, I guess you would call it, which is obviously Freddy when he betrays you. I think that's it for the bosses, or like the enemies, main story bosses. And obviously you fight Pretty Boy in the jackpot machine, or the jackbot machine. Usually there's, in this area, there's one of the mayor Trashlantis is kind of targets you gotta kill to get one of his pieces of clothing. Kill him in there. I forget what he's called, but he can drop, I think, the Heartbreaker. So I remember I fought him a bunch of times in the past, but he would never give me a Heartbreaker, or he would, but it wouldn't be like a good one. Or he would drop like other random legendaries from like the DLC, or like some other like base game legendary that you don't really want. And now we're gonna obviously go and fight a boss. I wonder who it's gonna be. Let's see what it is. Claptrap, what's he doing here? Or other Claptraps. I'm not sure if this is technically, I guess, retconning or is it canon. I guess they kind of reference it, how it's like how they survived the Great, like.
Holy crap! Those Claptraps could survive the Great Purge.
Like, how did they survive the Great Purge? Because like it's obviously, if you don't know, in Borderlands, the pre-sequel at the end, Jack, after you do the Claptrap voyage, Jack basically uses the H source to basically kill all of the Claptraps, or like deactivate them. And then, but he obviously shoots the like main Claptrap, the one that we see in the main, like our main Claptrap. And then obviously Hammerlock repairs him and fixes him up. So he kind of like is able to like survive that. But I guess these Claptraps were also good, or maybe they weren't affected, or maybe they were, or they got like they weren't like part of it because they're supposed to be like, I guess, alternate versions, or like the other experimental versions of like the Claptraps. Yeah, they're not too difficult. Basically, you just gotta they're kind of like a horde mode. You just gotta kill the mob until the big boss one spawns. This was like another area you would come to like farm a lot. I know like you would like always come here early and you would farm and you get like I still can't figure out what the heck I don't even know what it's called. I don't even like the one Jacob pistol that's like the slot machine. I can't even think of what the heck it's called. I'm like blanking on its name. But you would come and get that, and you would also get like, I think he also drops the boomer and maybe some other stuff, because you would just come here and get so much XP if that's your early game. You needed something to farm, or you would need like you just to get to like 72 once you beat the story, assuming you do like all the DLCs and all that stuff while leveling up. You would come here and like get to 72 from here. Because these guys aren't too difficult, and you would obviously get a guaranteed like the pistol or a boomer, and you could pretty much use that to keep killing them, or any other legendaries that they could drop. So you can drop a lot of legendaries if you're lucky enough. Yeah, you pretty much killed him. He's not too difficult. I think he dropped one of the pistol. I forget what it's called. Don't even know what it's called. I forget. The Lucky 7, that's what it's called. I can't even think of what the heck it was called. I knew it had like a kind of like a slot machine, like gambling kind of like graphics name, but I couldn't even think of what the heck it was called. It's a pretty cool pistol. Maybe I don't know how to equip it, but it's, like I said, it's very RNG, and that's kind of the issue with it. Where like you have to like really like play into its gimmick to make it work, which I guess is kind of a cool thing, but That's one of the main issues with a lot of guns is like consistency with damage of like where like you would rather have high card damage and high like stats on the card rather than like the potential to get more damage or to increase damage with by doing X, you know, doing a thing. You know, you look at something like, I don't know, let's see what we have. You know, you look at something like this boomer. Why would you rather you maybe use this boomer because it has really good stats than use like the Lucky 7, which maybe can out DPS the boomer if done correctly. Because like I say, this has consistent damage, but this has like the potential for even better damage if you know what you're doing. But sometimes it can go below to where it's like hurting you in the long run. I don't know. It's like hard to explain, you know, because it's like that. That's like one of the dilemmas of like making guns in Borderlands, or one of the things you kind of realize when you pay attention to like how some of the types of guns that are in the game, or why certain guns are like really popular. You know, like why would you use this like pistol, maybe with its like unique gimmick, when you can use like, I don't know, like the Maggie, because the Maggie is more consistent, or some of the other like Jacob pistols. If you like wanted the pistol, but like I said, if you get to proc properly, you can like do a lot of damage. See, like that now it does more damage. It gets a bigger fire rate. But if you don't get that every time, it's like, well, you're kind of like penalizing yourself. So like when you design, like because like if you're like a developer, you're like, oh, I want to design a pistol. Like sometimes it's you make a gun that's like really powerful based on itself, but then you make a gun that's like not as powerful, but you can't make it powerful because it has the potential to become even more powerful through a gimmick or do it if you use it the way the kind of game wants you to use it. I don't know. It's like a weird, like it's hard to explain. But I'm sure most people kind of understand what I'm saying if you're listening. I don't think anyone is really listening. I guess I'm just talking to myself. So I think, like I said, it's still a decent pistol. Like, I know it's only, I guess it's better on modes because you can like kind of like maintain the gimmick if you don't reload. But once you reload, you get a new chance, you get a new roll. See, like I got nothing there, so technically the gun is just going to do base damage, and it's really slow. And now I get all the bonuses now. It's really powerful. But because I chew through all my ammo so quickly, it's like, is it better? With modes, it's a little bit better to sustain because you don't have to reload as much. Once you reload, you lose your bonus basically, unless you get another one from another reroll. See how it gets more powerful? But we got nothing there, so it doesn't give us anything crazy. I guess we'll keep using them. We still have a broken needle gun. I don't know. Well, maybe. Well, I guess the needle gun is another good gun we can keep using too. Oh, we gotta talk to Tony. We have to fight. I guess he's kind of like another little mini boss too, but he's basically just a generic enforcer guy. But he's not too crazy. He kind of is like a little fun side character, kind of playing into like the trope of like the various like gangs, or like how like you would like someone like Tony. I guess he was like supposed to be like this like normal person who kind of comes and who's down on his luck, but now because of like who kind of becomes like now he's like the leader of this like small gang, and he has like ties to obviously Pretty Boy, so he's here able to like fight with take over the basically this and make this take over Trashlantis and turn it into his own like mini like little paradise, or his turf, I guess. But obviously we defeat him. He obviously has to like rely on Pretty Boy, but Pretty Boy obviously I guess betrays him because, you know, Pretty Boy has his own interests and he doesn't care about like Tony or anyone else, because that's kind of like how it is in like the mob rule, or the mob kind of type of motif that, or the mob, I guess, I don't know, like basically Pretty Boy betraying Tony is like him like being sleazy and like a con artist, I guess. Still got a lot more questions. I don't even, do we have enough to go to Joey actually? I don't even know. I guess. Oh, we do. Well, we'll go later. I guess I'll go off camera. You know, I don't think. Well, I guess I don't think we need to show off Joey right now, because we've seen Joey so much if you've been watching it. Like we said, we always go every other part. Trying to revive our Spider-Man. That's another thing. Our Spider-Man's starting to struggle more. Or I guess she is dying more often, so we have to kind of revive her more. I know like if we have Gamma Burst and all the other like blue tree skills, we can kind of keep her alive. Keep, I guess, it alive or her alive. I'm not sure what the pronouns of our Spider-Man is, but I guess he calls it a she, and the other, because the other ones are like he and him, like Mr. Chew and the Meat Thief are like he. And like he always refers to her as like a female, or like his girl basically, because the other one is like boy or good boy. Because she obviously becomes like one of like the female, like the big giant like empresses, like the big booted ones, because that's what's like her, or the countess they call her.
Back to killing.
And now we're gonna come and get this constructor eye.
Excellent work. Perhaps we are not doomed after all. Now return to me, and your delightfully fashion-blind friend will help us repair the constructor. I hereby
Oh, usually
call
there's
to order the
was it one of those
first
iridium
city
chests here
council
that can spawn there.
meeting.
Once in a while, once you jump down there, you get it, but this time we didn't get it.
Our first order of business is a name.
And now he's gonna. We got this audio out where he talked about how they picked the name,
There's no room for ego at this
but they kind of like tease each other about like the names and how bad they are.
I'll remind you that everyone has full veto power, and only a unanimous vote will carry a motion. Now, I'll open the floor.
I've given this a lot of thought. What do you think of Underland? Huh? Because we're, you know, under everything else?
Sounds like underpants. Hard no. How about suburbia on account of how this place sucks?
Fine, I've got some other ideas. Let's see here. Scrap heap?
Or like crap heap, nah.
Waste
Yeah,
Or
he
like
starts
waste
saying
of
like,
time world, nah.
Junkopolis?
Or like chunkopolis, nah.
That's what I said.
Whatever, Vito.
Gentlemen, please. This bickering won't do. Recall that this fair city was founded upon a spirit of comity and
Freddy's here!
Freddy
Bring
cuts
them
off.
cells to me.
Oh, wow, that's
I'll
fine.
get straight to work on the power source.
So we gotta give him the batteries, and he basically makes the battery, or like I guess a big giant battery to power this thing. And then we plug in this
Working for Freddy!
AI the claptrap AI, which basically turns into an AI constructor. So we get like a little, I guess, another indirect piece of claptrap, because claptrap obviously isn't in this DLC, which is another really interesting. You think he would like just randomly show up? But I guess it's just kind of their way of tying in claptrap, because he is kind of like part of the Hyperion or Handsome Jack kind of like branding, I guess you would call it, or the kind of like environment. And, you know, if you're gonna have Hyperion, you have to have claptrap, or you have to have the claptraps on top of like the loaders or all of the other like corporateness of like Hyperion. Part of, I guess, the aesthetic. The aesthetic is the best way of referring to that. He's part of it all too. So we have this like kind of little reference to him. So I don't think he's actually like or like maybe he's in a side quest. I can't remember. 'Cause I know in DLC 2 he's like part of the main story, or he kind of Gage basically sends him off on his quest, and he kind of informs you along the way what he's doing, and then it ends with him giving you the pearl of knowledge, basically. It's kind of like one of the other like really like meta artifact that you can get. So that's why we kind of want to save that for later once we get to move to 72. But you don't get that till like much later in during the quest. By then you probably would be a little higher level. But because I don't think that relics are like, or not relics, artifacts are like affected by like mayhem mode, kind of like with shields, and I guess your shields too aren't really affected, and class mode aren't affected by it in terms of like their damage and stats and their perks that they provide. So it's not like you don't have to like be on Mayhem 11, but you just want to be 72 to get the maximum rolls or maximum like max damage or max stat that they can give.
save Trashlantis.
So now we gotta escort this big constructor through everything to get him to the beam, and obviously we obviously have to do a bunch of fight sequence, and that's when Tony comes in. He tries to mess with us.
Empire controls the area around the shredder. You'll have to escort the constructor.
Open the door. Hopefully we don't get attacked by anybody.
I don't know what you're up to, but it stinks. More than the usual stink around here. What is that?
You can see like once we get those good rolls, we can like really shoot through a lot of enemies. Like it's really powerful. But like once you don't get them, you're kind of slow. It's not as powerful. But we get like that corrosive shot. I don't know like all the perks. I think there's like one that's fire rate. There's one that adds like splash damage. There's one that like I think gives us increased critical hit damage. There's one that's like an amp shot kind of, and then I think there's something else too. But I don't know. There's like one that gives us more pellets. So it's basically just increasing basically the damage in indirect ways, making the gun even more powerful. Which is, I guess, it's kind of like the fun little gimmick of this gun, like the luck and draw of like trying to get something good. But you see, we got nothing there. But then we got two things, so now we have two things. So we got that like amp shot and I think a critical hit bonus or increased critical hit damage.
Oh, barricade.
Let's see. We still got a lot more was it guardian rings. We're gonna keep leveling it up. We do get a pretty quick offense. So usually once you get to like max level, you don't even really or have maxed out things. You don't really think about no more because you don't really get any more, I guess, stats other than for your vault cards, assuming you haven't leveled all those up, which that takes a long time to do, to level up, especially since a lot of like I guess we haven't really put, like doing some of these like challenges. A lot of them are like actually like end game stuff. Like I think there's like one where it's like kill certain bosses, kill like Scourge ironically or Wotan, you know. So like if you're doing this at the early game, you're not gonna obviously do those objectives, and it's kind of like a waste because you can't even access those enemies at the moment. Now he's asking for help, but you know, Pretty Boy's giving him the cold shoulder. Looks like they're fighting. Hopefully they don't betray each other, or I guess he's gonna betray Tony. Yeah, sometimes the Ducky 7 is just kind of inconsistent, but sometimes it's better to use like this. Like it's better to use this gun because this gun is consistent. You know, you kind of have to like pick and choose, like how you want to play. It's one of those kind of like I guess one of the things that kind of hurts and helps Borderlands, especially when you have certain weapons. You know, and hope like I guess with Borderlands 4 they kind of take that philosophy to like hardware. It's like maybe it's a little bit better to, if you're gonna add, you know, guns, you know, and want them to be powerful, you have to kind of pick and choose. You know, do I want them to be like rely on a gimmick to make them more powerful, or want them to just have raw stats that makes them powerful? Because you kind of need to like have that balance of both. But you obviously people are gonna gravitate towards the gun that has the best damage, best stats, best everything, and has the best potential. But a lot of those like other like guns that like, you know, if you do X, or you can like stack the damage, or you get like a technically infinite damage, or you have a way to like stacking it really high, you can like make the gun even more powerful than some of the other guns. You know, you kind of have to like figure that out, or kind of find how to like cheese the system basically, which I guess is like always something that happens with a lot of guns in Borderlands. You know, you find like a gun that becomes really powerful, or only because, you know, if you do X and with Y, and then you in combination with these skills or this character, you know, you can kind of break certain guns. Which I guess it's kind of like one of the flaws that people have to Borderlands, you know, is like the gun, not the gun, but like the kind of like the things that the game kind of lets you unofficially do, or things that the game maybe doesn't want you to do. You know, the exploits that are glitches that exist. You know, because Borderlands 2 and like I guess Borderlands 1 and even the pre-sequel, they all had that too, where, you know, there was so many like little things you would figure out or learn like how to do, and you would always see like videos of like how to like make this gun really powerful, or how to, you know, cheese this, or how to cheese that, or how to like one-shot certain enemies with this combination of gear set.
There we go. Bravery protocols updated.
I don't know. I guess that's kind of why I like Borderlands. I guess I like Borderlands more just for the novelty of the guns. You know, seeing these kind of goofy guns, you know, it kind of like adds to the charm of it. Because, you know, you look at something like Call of Duty, or a lot of the other like realistic shooters. You know, like yeah, they have. It's kind of like aesthetically pleasing to see a lot of like these like old-timey like weapons, you know, from like World War I, World War II, you know, like those kind of old eras. We're seeing like these kind of like semi-futuristic modern shooter guns that are like kind of based off of them. Modern shooter guns, or just guns based off of like the modern guns, or guns from the past. And then you look at like something Borderlands, which kind of takes those kind of tropes and like amplifies it, where each of the manufacturers kind of has the personality and aesthetic that kind of makes them more unique. And then you throw in the kind of the goofiness of like the semi-futuristicness of it. You know, like you think of like TD, or like a gun that's like this futuristic gun that's supposed to be like this cheap disposable gun that you just throw at enemies and it explodes. And you wouldn't. What other game could really do something like that? You know, kind of adds to like the, I guess the charm of Borderlands that not many people talk about. You know, you look at like I guess other guns too, like this Doll. You know, Doll B, kind of like the hyper like futuristic military like private army group of like all the guns. You know, have like the sights, the scopes, the attachments, you know, the extended grips, of the extended magazines. You know, all of the attachment that you kind of think about like in like Call of Duty. You know, add this attachment to get an extra reload, plus stats. You know? Especially like modern Call of Duty, where you get like those crazy like gun combinations or like just different stats, where this grip gives plus this stat or minus that or increases that or adds to this and adds to that. You know, you get those crazy combinations. And I guess Borderlands kind of takes that trope too, where like each of the guns have this kind of goofy like bunch of accessories and attachments that can make the gun kind of play into that kind of like goofiness of it.
Now that those jerks are dead, we
Yeah, we
should be
killed
able to throw
Tony.
the
He's not too
process into
difficult.
overdrive.
He's just basically, just like I said, just such an enforcer enemy.
Doing the best I can.
Should be done by now, but he's gonna have to like sacrifice himself.
You may have beat my man today, but this fight ain't over. I got a lot of toys to squeeze,
Yeah, I know.
but you're still top of the bowl.
We'll never bow to you.
Oh, you'll bow all right. Renovations are coming, and I've got an ace up my sleeve.
I wonder what his ace up the sleeve is. Hopefully, it's not someone betraying us. You know, I hope that doesn't happen.
Long as he reigns. Now, Vault Hunter, please escort our new constructor citizen back to Trashlantis.
Unfortunately, he can't reinforce the beam.
And you're still in danger. I've grown quite fond of you all over the last several minutes.
I didn't realize that's like basically made of a pile of all the loader bot pieces, and that's like a big giant beam.
You are truly one of us, my friend.
Where did this beam even come from that they throw it away, or that how it got lodged into this machine? Because you see like all the other, I guess all the other pieces of trash, like where did all this stuff come from really? Or was this already here? Or who built all this really? I guess the people at Trashlantis built this, but was this like something, or like I guess there was maybe like a manufacturing or maybe like equipment already here that people were working on before this trash, like this, like the, I guess the big giant like trash pile basically, or the big dump basically became, you know, these like Trashlantis, I guess.
When you are ready.
I also know there's like a, I think there's an achievement if you come and talk to him, but you can like get it right away when you talk to him.
I guess I just,
Yeah, there it is. Don't be a stranger.
don't be a stranger.
Hey, you said it too. Because you don't, I guess you don't realize it because you can like talk to him right away. You think you would have to like come back or like wait after the mission's complete, but you can just do it right away. 'Cause you know, it's kind of one of those like little hidden achievements that you don't realize you can do. Because most people probably would just do that and then just teleport back right away, especially if you're kind of speeding through it. I don't know if we'll get, I guess maybe I'll do it in my own time. It's 100% everything, because, you know, that's like, at least with one character, just to have all the unlockables, because, you know, if I don't know if I'll plan to, like, play as other characters now, that once we get, like, through the main story and try to do other stuff with Borderlands, or I don't know what I really want to do with this game. I guess once we do everything, we'll wait and see, but we still got a long way to go. You know, I don't know, maybe we'll finally beat everything at the end of 2026. We'll be finally doing the Creek DLC, or maybe the Takedown, or maybe some other random little side thing. But who knows? Oh, yeah, we gotta talk to the mayor. He's over there. He's up here on this little outlook.
I have saved Trashlantis.
Now he's gonna join our crew, or posse.
Assistant to the hero of Trashlantis, which is me. I'm the hero of Trashlantis.
Yeah, well.
Well, I am a man of my word. I shall ascend to the world above and join your crew. For Trashlantis will never be free. So long as pretty
I think we also get a unique from this, but sadly it's like one of those blues that kind of doesn't scale really well. It kind of falls off. It's more of like a, I guess, oh, we got a legendary. I know you can get a, wait, is that a free radical? Oh my god, we did get, wait, I didn't know you could get legendaries from this actually. Wait, did we actually get a free radical? We actually did get a free radical. I did not know we could get legendaries from that chest. I know we get iridium and golden keys, but I didn't know we could get legendaries. I don't think I've ever really gotten a, no, honestly, I don't think I've gotten a legendary from this chest, but a free radical is, this is like I said, the free radical is like probably one of the strongest like pistols in the game in terms of like Maliwan pistols. What else do we want? I guess we keep going down to power inside.
I doubt it. We'll start casing the joint.
Yeah, Maki start blabbing. But getting a free radical, that's pretty cool. Yeah, the free radical, like I said, the free radical is one of the best pistols in the game. And getting that early on is like really good because it's, I guess it's part of the DLC pack. I don't know, because it's like a deal. I guess this is from the director's cut, or the like the season, like DLC 6, I guess you would call it. But yeah, getting that, I mean, I guess that's our next big gun. Because usually you would have to obviously go and do the Ava murder mysteries, or go into like the diamond vault key to get, maybe just to get it from a, like a from the vault card chest is pretty rare. I mean, it's probably the best thing we could have gotten. Compared to even outdoing it, we don't even need the Lucky 7 anymore.
I'll fix him up and reprogram him.
That's another thing too. I don't know what happened.
I know they tried to kill you and all.
Because Freddy's
but that's
talking
what
right
they
now,
were
but
designed
I
to
guess that's
do.
like a word glitch where he starts like talking to you. Because that's like the little dialogue he gives you when you first meet him. He like says that, but every time we spawn in, he says it now. Oh wait, I don't want to do this right now. I guess we could.
Freddy's here too. Don't forget about me. Freddy.
Yeah, let's wait a second.
Okay, the gang's all here. Sorry, the hideout's not really designed for event hosting.
I'm not sure if it's gonna jump into it, but if we have to wait and talk to them. Okay, he's gonna. We have to wait and talk to him because once we do that, we're gonna do like the little heist thing where we have to go get all the pieces to break into the, like the secret area of Jack's secret.
This thing or what?
So I guess we'll wrap it up here. That's gonna be it. We obviously finished Trashlantis. I think that's we will do this later because once we do that, we can jump into the Jack's secret area. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this, I guess. I don't know. This is probably. I don't know if I'll do another video because, like I said, the year is almost over. Maybe I'll have another one before the end of the year, but I don't know. I have to wait and see what I want to do. But maybe I'll have another video, at least one other video. That's all I can kind of guarantee you. Kind of to end off the 2025, but who knows? But maybe I'll see you in 2026 then if that doesn't happen. But yeah, be sure to like all the other parts. Be sure to like this video. Be sure to check out all the other parts, obviously, and hopefully you see something more from me. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye, guys.